It was one of the most remarkable success stories in all of college sports. The UNLV Runnin' Rebels, one of the most dominant programs ever, led by Hall of Fame coach Jerry Tarkanian.
They have won their first ever national championship, and in 3 trips, the Shark comes away a winner in a record-setting night, 103-73, UNLV.
What led to their remarkable success and their sudden demise in the desert? A story of remarkable victories and tragic betrayal, all played out in a backdrop of the glittering lights of Las Vegas. Now, your host, Ron Futrell, with the rise and fall of the Rebels.
Well, hi, everybody. Protect yourself at all times. We are on it. Ron Futrell here with the rise and fall of the Rebels. Sort of an intro, okay, to what this podcast is, what we are going to attempt to do, what I hope to do with it, what I think I will do. How about that? And I'm going to a lot of things to talk about and a lot of things to go over here with the rise and fall of the Rebels. A lot of people know UNLV basketball, whether you're across the country, around the world, really, for that matter. Know Rebel basketball, know of its great glory, know of its dynasty that was built in the desert here in Nevada, how it was done, why it was done, Jerry Tarkanian as the basketball coach, and then all of a sudden just disappeared. I'm sure that's what it looks like to most from the outside looking in. Those of us that lived here in Las Vegas during the time, it was tough. It was 4.5. I called it 4.5 years of hell, going through all the battles at the university that led to the demise of the basketball program. And what we're going to attempt to do here between now and April. See, April, and the reason I picked this time to do it, April 2nd, will be the 30th anniversary of the Rebel basketball program winning the national championship in Denver. I was there for that game. Covered the Rebels, covered the team, covered the program, did Jerry Tarkanian's basketball show for 10 years. And so I thought I'd, with this intro here, put down a few questions. I went around the newsroom, asked people what they would like this podcast to accomplish. First of all, the first question I got is, why do the podcast? Okay. Oh, I get that. Yeah, we get people. I've had people say, "Hey, Ron, just let it go. It's too painful to go through this again and talk about it." And because it was very painful to the people here in Las Vegas to see a basketball program that was a dynasty get destroyed right before their very eyes, and it happened quickly. So, why do it? Well, a lot of us are getting older. Maybe we're forgetting some of the stories. Maybe our memory's starting to fade, yes. Maybe some have passed on, which they have, a lot of people that were involved with this issue, with this story. Dennis Fenfrock, the athletic director at UNLV, is no longer with us, died of Parkinson's. And in the end, I defended Dennis, by the way, as there's going to be some critical things said about him. But in the end, I defended him from what Bob Maxson, the president of UNLV, was doing. Well, and by the way, we're going to offer anybody and everybody to come on this podcast that's involved with this story. Fans, we're going to get some players involved. The first couple of episodes, Danny Tarkanian and Doug Sanderson talked to us. Danny, of course, Jerry's son and a former player. Doug Sanderson was the associate athletic director at UNLV, so the number 2 guy under Brad Rothermel for 8 years during the glory days of the Rebels. So they've all got interesting perspective and interesting points that I think need to be made and stories that need to be told. And this is a good time to do it. Okay, that's all there is to it. This is a good time to do it, and there isn't a podcast like this. There have been. Let's see. HBO did the Runnin' Rebels, the NCAA battles. They went over the NCAA battles. They didn't really get into the Jerry Tarkanian, Bob Maxson battles at UNLV that eventually led to the demise of the program. The NCAA stuff, that's salacious. That's very interesting. We'll talk about a lot of that too. I mean, one thing that rings in my head, the NCAA investigated Jerry Tarkanian for 4.5 years, and they had 7 of their 11 investigators checking out Rebel basketball to make sure they weren't doing something they shouldn't be doing. Okay, no, think about that for a second. Of all the college basketball, of all the college sports programs, all over the number of college sports programs at universities, over 300 Division I schools and Division II, Division III, and all of their programs at all the schools, a majority of the resources by the NCAA were focused on Rebel basketball to try to catch Jerry Tarkanian. I firmly believe that what Bob Maxson, the president of the university, would have loved to have seen happen is a major violation on Jerry Tarkanian by the NCAA, so that he could have held a news conference and said, what a sad day, what a horrible day. Coach Stark has to leave because the NCAA busted him. But that never happened. That never happened with the NCAA. They didn't catch him. Okay? So that I think was one of the first things that Bob Maxson was hoping. And yes, okay, and I'll go through. What do I know is one of the questions. Why was the program destroyed? Is one of the questions I get asked more than anything else, and it boils down to a couple of reasons. I think Bob Maxson, the president of UNLV at the time, wanted to control the most powerful thing in Las Vegas at the time. And it was only powerful because Jerry Tarkanian made it successful. It was powerful with the people. And he felt that he needed to control that, wanted to control it. From Bob Maxson's point of view, I'm sure it was, we got NCAA problems, so it needs to be controlled. Okay. Then what you do is to fire the coach. That's one way. He had like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz. He could have clicked his heels 3 times. He had the power all along to be able to just get rid of Jerry Tarkanian. And I said that often on sportscasts here in town. I said it early and often. If Bob Maxson, you want Jerry Tarkanian out, fire him. He didn't have either the guts or he was afraid to. I've heard that story before in conversations I've had with people. But he went with I think plan A was to get the NCAA to find a major violation. Plan B could have been just for him to fire him. Didn't do that. So they would go to plan C all the way down there, which is mob-like tactics, and stab Tark in the back 1,000 times till he bleeds to death. And use the media, by the way, the media is involved in this, and use leaks to the media, many times stories that were might-be's, could-be's, maybe's, flat-out inaccuracies to the media to get them to until Tark finally gave up. And that's what it amounted to, until he finally just gave up and said, okay, I'm out. I've had enough. I'm out of here. And then coached his final season, which was also an interesting part of this, that last season, Tark's final year coaching at UNLV. And so there's so many things that we could get into, so many things that we could talk about. And like I said, this is going to be just an intro here of what we're going to have. The guests, I'm offering it, again, anybody and everybody, all the people on both sides of this issue. I'm not optimistic that people on Bob Maxson's side will be willing to come on here, but I'm going to still extend that offer. I've done it to Brad Book. I'll do it if I can find Maxson. I'll do it to him. Other people in the media I want on here to talk to about this. So that's what we plan to do. I think this podcast needs to be done. Simple as that. I think there should be a 30 for 30 ESPN documentary type of story on this, because there's so many elements to this. There are so many elements that need to be told, and we need to report on. What do I know? What do I know? That was one of the questions. So what do I know? What? Okay. Introduce me to you here a little bit. I'm Ron Futrell, a sports anchor here in Vegas for now 35 years. At a couple of stations. Channel 13, when all this was going on, I was at Channel 13, the ABC station. I'm now at Channel 8 here in Las Vegas. So, and what do I know? What happened at the time? Boy, that one I could go on forever, and that's what we're going to do throughout this podcast. But just the short version of it is, I suspected that the university. Bob Maxson, now you have to know, he was talking all the time about how he liked Jerry Tarkanian. Boy, I like Jerry. He's from Texas, so boy, I like Jerry Tarkanian. He's my coach, my little school here, and we want him to be doing. We were behind him 100%. Well, as Bob Maxson was saying that, okay, what he was doing, he had gotten rid of Brad Rothermel, the athletic director, brought in Dennis Finfrock in 1991, in between the two games. Okay, so UNLV beats Duke in 1990. Brad Rothermel resigns, leaves, he stayed at the university, but was no longer athletic director. And then he brings in Dennis Finfrock, who had run the Thomas and Mack Center, former wrestling coach. And he brought him in to, I believe, to plant the seeds with the media. I believe it. He did. I mean, this is not in dispute anymore of what Dennis Finfrock's job was. And Brad Book, the attorney at UNLV, at the time, those three people very close. And what he did, Dennis Finfrock, was leak negative stories to the media about Jerry Tarkanian under the direction of Bob Maxson, because you had to. You couldn't be doing that. And I had long conversations with Maxson about this, one in particular I can think of right now. But and a couple of times in his office about, why are you letting this happen? Why are you letting Dennis Finfrock leak these negative stories? Well, Ron, I got to tell you, if that's what he's doing, he's really got to perhaps that ain't the right thing. Hey, it isn't the right thing to do. Come on. You fire him then. How crazy. Okay, here's where things flipped. I suspected that stuff like this was happening. There was a writer from the Review Journal stopped me one time under the basketball court at UNLV, not the court, but under the stands right there. And I started chatting about this. I'm hearing all these crazy things about Dennis Finfrock leaking stories to the media that are negative about Jerry Tarkanian, the basketball coach. And he says, oh, yeah, that's happening. It's happening often. We get calls from him often. Numerous times a week is what he told me. That he would call, Dennis Finfrock, the athletic director, would call the sports department at the Review Journal and try to encourage them to do negative stories on Jerry Tarkanian. This was told to me by a basketball writer at UNLV. I said, well, why don't you do that story? That's the story. That especially if these stories are if these leaks are stupid stuff. And they were largely stupid stuff, okay? Without substance, without merit, some flat out just inaccurate. Anyway, so why don't you do that story? He looked at me and says, I wish we could. We can't. The paper won't let us. We can't do that story. I said, well, I can do it. Nobody's stopping me. So I did it. I went to Dennis Finfrock and I asked him, I said, hey, this is what I'm hearing. I suspected it. Now I'm hearing it from people at the Review Journal. You have a moment, I can do an interview with you to talk about this. No, Ron, not going to do it. I said, you're the athletic director of the university. And I'm going to mention this on air. Do you want to defend yourself? Do you want to? Nope. Not going to address that issue. Wow. Okay. Oh, so there was some confirmation to me right there of what instead of even it didn't deny it, just said he didn't want to talk to me on camera. That was I remember it well. It was at the old press box at UNLV football, and there's some narrow steps that you would go up into the top. Up of the very tippity top of Sam Boyd Stadium, and it was right there in that little narrow hallway that when I stopped Dennis and asked him if he would, and he didn't want to. So, all right. So that was the first indication. There are many others, and there were. I heard stories from different reporters on. Well, here's one for you. A story of a TV reporter that's in the office of Dennis Finfrock. Larry Johnson pulls up in a nice new black Corvette. Okay. This was after the Rebels had won the national championship, and now they're going to try to repeat against and lost to Duke. They went 34-1 that season. By the way, Tark's record his final 2 years. You know what his record was his final 2 years? Think about that for a second. He went 34-1, and then his final year went 26-2. By my math, that's 60-3. With and the year before that, they won the national championship. Okay? Wow. So anyway, Tark would often say, hey, you'd like to think that would be enough to keep your job, but apparently it wasn't. So anyway, another story. Okay, so the TV reporter's in Dennis Finfrock's office, and Larry Johnson pulls up with the black Corvette. This is 1991, and Finfrock mentions to this reporter, sort of in anger, I'm sick of these guys driving these nice new cars. What's going on with that? I'm going to do an investigation on the cars. And so and this was right before the start of the, 91 season. And when Johnson, Ogman, and Anthony all came back to play, right before the start of that season, because he then decided to, Finfrock says, I'm going to start an investigation. The reporter was there for something else, a women's basketball story or something totally different. But now things shifted where Finfrock says, I'm going to do an investigation into the cars. You want to do the story? Do an investigation on the Rebels cars. I'm opening an investigation right now. I'm sick of seeing this. Okay? I happened to be, I didn't know what was going on in Finfrock's office, but I just happened to be over there. I was in Jerry Tarkanian's office doing an interview with Tark, just wrapped it up, just getting ready to leave. And saw a reporter from the TV station taking video after now the meeting in Finfrock's office had finished, and the reporter and the photographer from another station were now out taking video of Larry Johnson's car. Larry Johnson was in Tark's office, and Larry's not happy. Larry's seeing them shoot video of his car. And I remember stopping, sort of not getting in his way. I couldn't have stopped Larry Johnson. But anyway, I said, Larry, look at me for a second. Don't touch the camera or the photographer. I didn't want Larry to do something real stupid. I didn't want somebody to get hurt. He was angry. But I did tell him, I said, Larry, I know the photographer. I know the reporter. They're friends of mine. Don't touch them. Don't touch the camera. And so Larry went out there, got in the guy's face a little bit. So that, of course, made the news that night. But he didn't touch the camera, didn't touch the reporter, didn't do anything in that area. But so the lead story on local newscast that night was Rebel players' cars investigated. The head story, top story in the Review Journal the next day, Rebels players' cars being investigated. Dennis Finfrock says he's going to investigate the cars and how the Rebel players get these cars. Well, Tark holds a news conference when all this media comes out the next day, says, wait a second, investigation. He's got all the information. All he has to do to investigate is open up his drawer. They've got the titles to the cars. They know where the cars come from. He doesn't need to open up an investigation. He has all the information right there at his fingertips of how the players got those cars, where they got the cars from. And all he needs to do is open up his drawer and take a look at them and see. It's all very well documented. And Tark then also said, I hope he's not just singling out men's basketball. Is he going to look into the other programs too? So Tark was genius at this, and then he called their bluff. And so then the university said, okay, oh yeah, of course, we're going to look at all the modes of transportation of our student athletes. So they send out a questionnaire to all the student athletes, and the questionnaire comes back, how do you get to school? And people wrote, I don't know, a size 12 Nikes. That's how I get to school. How do you get to school? I got a bike. It's a Schwinn 10-speed. I got a skateboard. It's a bad one. It's pretty used. The wheels are a little rusty and cranky, but that's how I get there. I got an old Buick station wagon that my mom let me drive. Okay, so you get all these ridiculous answers, but they were the answers. And here's the bottom line. Okay, would it shock anybody? I use the term often. There are no virgins in big-time college athletics, meaning, and in fact, HBO used that line when they did their documentary, and I was featured in it, where I used that line about Rebel basketball. There are no virgins in big-time college athletics. If you're going to win, you're going to play the games somehow. When I say play the games, yes, you're going to do the NCAA rule book is so complicated, you can't help but cheat sometimes. Okay, well, knowingly or not, you can't help but break some rules because it's like the IRS. Okay, if you want, let's go here. If you got your IRS income tax submitted every year, I guarantee you, if they want to do an audit on everybody's income tax, they would find mistakes just with everybody's income tax. So that's sort of my premise here. So my point with the cars is, okay, yes, here's how college athletes get nice cars. Okay, very simple. A booster, who is their sponsor, who is their buddy, becomes their friend, and they're assigned to that player, buys a car, gives it to an uncle of theirs, gives it to a family member, and it's registered in that family member's name. The family member then gives the car to the student athlete. So now the student athlete is driving a nice new car. That's the way around it. That's how, in most cases, that's how it happens in college athletics. Did it happen that way at UNLV? I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know how they did it. We didn't have access to that information. That was private information. But that's typically how things happen, is that a booster will go through a close family member. If you notice, anytime that there's an NCAA scandal and it busts open, it's a family member somewhere that exposes it. It's somebody ran afoul of an aunt and uncle, and they decided to expose what happened. Lamar Odom at UNLV was an aunt who blew the whistle, not because she was mad at Lamar, but she was mad at UNLV, which is another. Remind me of that one. Remind me the Lamar Odom story is one that's got to be told during this podcast at some point here at UNLV. But it was an aunt that blew the whistle because she was mad at UNLV because they didn't take care of Lamar because he got busted. And few people know this story. He got busted soliciting what he thought was a hooker downtown Las Vegas, but it was actually a police officer undercover. And so anyway, and so she blew the whistle, and UNLV was put on 5 years probation. But the incident, okay, so there's a couple of cases right there where UNLV was actively trying to create negative publicity about Jerry Tarkanian to try to get rid of him, to try to change public opinion. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to change public opinion to make it so that people would say, I'm sick of this, let's get rid of Jerry Tarkanian. Let's fire the coach so that Bob Maxson politically could be on the right side of history. What I didn't like about it is that he came in wearing the white hat. He's the president of the university. I hold them to a higher standard than I would a basketball or football coach or a coach of any sport. The president of the university is supposed to be wearing, go here, the white hat. And Maxson came in like, I'm wearing the white hat. I'm going to clean up the program. I'm going to make it go the way that it should be. This is academics over athletics. And these were the buzz phrases that they would use. Clean up the program and be able to, in this battle of academics over athletics, which is a false battle, by the way, but that's the battle that they created at the administration level. It wasn't a battle with Tark, but at the administration level that eventually they said, this is how we get rid of Jerry Tarkanian as basketball coach at UNLV. So, Bob Maxson, the academics over athletics. This is where the media started to play a role here in this too, because it was often in editorials in the RJ. We need to send the message that it's academics over athletics. Well, okay, send that message then. Does that mean you got to get rid of Tark? That means you have to destroy a very successful dynasty that Tark built. By the way, the basketball program at UNLV was ranked number two all time in college basketball. By Bleacher Report. They did a survey. They did their own polling amongst themselves and their writers. Number 2 all time. This is the number 2 greatest college basketball program of all time, according to Bleacher Report. The one that was above it was the John Wooden, Lou Alcindor team, okay, from the 60s. Was that team, early 70s, in that range. So that they were number 1. UNLV for those 2 years was number 2. By the way, the Duke team that the Rebels split with in those in the NCAA tournament in 90 and 91, that Duke team was ranked number 5. They won back-to-back Final Fours. So there you have it. Well, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a dynasty that was built in the desert from next to nothing, from barely a program, hash marks, a little into what it became at UNLV. So Bob Maxson knew to try to control. Okay, Tark always used to say, there's no battle between academics and athletics here. Academics always wins. He would say it often. Academics wins. Let's don't have this battle. I don't want this battle. I'm not creating this battle. Where's the battle? And by the way, and I said this on air quite a few times, if you want to raise the academics of a university, or even the perception of academics at a university, raise the standards to get in the school. Now, UNLV is a public institution. At the time, it took a 2.0 to get into it, or 12 credits at a junior college. And you could get into UNLV. You couldn't be denied, technically, if you've a state-run school. You have to have those sort of schools. You have to have schools like that, right? Don't you? Not everybody can go to Harvard, Stanford, great academic institutions, where, by the way, there is no battle of academics over athletics at those schools. And Cal, Stanford, BYU, pretty good academics. They got pretty good sports programs too. So anyway, they don't have. This was one guy, Bob Maxson, the president of the university, and inciting this battle, a false battle that wasn't a real battle. And Tark would say it often, and would question it. Control the program. We need to get power over the program. Control the program. There was an incident again. Let's go after Tark's final year, when Tark resigned, and technically he resigned as basketball coach. He resigned. He was making $130. Think about this, about $135,000, $140,000 a year. That's what he was being. And he always had a 3-year rollover contract or a 2-year rollover. It had 2 years on it, then a rollover for a third. He never had a 5-year contract at millions a year. No, his base salary about $140,000 a year. Okay, I'm going to check on that number, but I'm pretty sure that that's the right number. Okay, now he made other money off doing his TV shows, off Nike contracts, and that sort of stuff, so he was being paid through that, which all had to be approved by the university. But when Tark was forced to resign, which he later rescinded. Boy, that was crazy. Remember that one? Okay. Anyway, when he was forced to resign, he said he was going to coach one final season. And in September, now basketball practice was set to begin October, November, late October. There was a specific date. Let me think. I don't remember the date because it's changed over the years. But let's say it was October 15th, where you could start basketball practice was supposed to start at that date. Well, the school semester would begin in mid-September, early September, right? So Tim Gergerich, the assistant coach for Jerry Tarkanian, ran a conditioning class, is what he called it. It was open to all students. It was a class at the university. You could take it. Anybody could take it. It was held in the North Gym on the campus of UNLV, and the players took the class. They almost like they were required. I don't think you could require them to, but the players, UNLV players, would take the class, but other students would take it as well. And so they would go in the gym, and they would practice basketball moves. And you can see the video, and they're just running up and down the court. There's no basketball in there, and that's important to this story. But they would practice slides and moves and different things that they would do for conditioning. Okay, and that's what it was, a conditioning class. So, since you can't start basketball practice until, let's say, October 15th, and they're doing this, and Tim Gergerich is in there, the university felt it might be a violation. So what did they do? They put a secret camera, without telling the coach, a secret camera up in an air conditioning duct to be able to get the video so they could submit it to the NCAA to report a violation. It's like, I said it at the time, it's like taking your tax returns every year and turning them into the IRS and say, please, find if I made a mistake here. If I mentioned too much about taxes, haven't I? But here, please audit me and see if I made a mistake. I mean, it's insane to do something like this. But this is what, so it got found out. It got uncovered that they had done this. I was amazed. I was shocked. And in fact, I called Tark. I said, I heard this is what's happening. And is this true? He said, yeah, that's what I heard. It's true. So I went with the story on the 11 o'clock news. And this was after, I was at 13 at the time, and George Knapp at Channel 8, the station I'm at now, actually broke the story for this. And I saw him do it. And I said, whoa, hold on. So they're now resorting to this? They're resorting to putting secret cameras in a class to record the basketball team and other students, by the way, it is a class on campus, to record them while they're there so that they could turn it into the NCAA and perhaps catch a violation. I believe they wanted to catch Tim Gergerich, who was in a violation, so that he didn't replace Jerry Tarkanian as basketball coach at UNLV, because they did not want that to happen. They wanted their coach so they could control the program. Again, back to my protect the program and control the program. When it was found out and uncovered about the secret videotaping, it backfired horribly on the university, horribly on UNLV. It backfired because then the public says, you did what? You're putting secret cameras inside a gym to try to catch Tark, to turn him into the NCAA? Whoa. Hold on a second. Ding, ding, ding. We got problems here, folks. And that's what happened. And they did it. Then the attorney at the time, Brad Buck, says, we're doing this to protect the program. Bob Maxson, we're doing this to protect the program, Ron. That's what we're trying to do here. Our little school here, we need to protect the program. Dennis Finfrock took the fall for it and was later he was fired basically over this. Okay, but he was just following directions. He didn't go out on his own and do stuff on his own. He was basically following directions and wanted to be advanced at UNLV, wanted to be on the good side of Bob Maxson. By the way, the atmosphere over there was horrific in the sense that in the athletic department, you were on one side or you were on the other. Oh my, there was no. And if you were on Tark's side, you were gone. Simple as that. They had to remove Tark's power base at the university before they got rid of him, and they did that. Got rid of the athletic director, then started whittling away at other employees at the university. And unless you took a vow of honor towards Bob Maxson, basically, unless you did that, you were done. You were gone. They'd get rid of you, and that's the way you were treated. So it was a horrific time. As a reporter, it was hell to go through. It really was. It was a lot of, now we're 30 years ago, so we didn't have cell phones, late night phone calls. I'd be up till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with sources giving me information. This is what I hear. This is what I know. This is what I've heard. This is what you need to check out. You need to go here. You need to go. Oh, and it was, you have to understand the role of Rebel basketball in this community. It united this community unlike anything before, or I'll say since, but Vegas Golden Knights have done that. So if you're in Vegas now, you weren't here then, you see what the Vegas Golden Knights have done. That was Rebel basketball, but it was for a decade, and they won the national championship. So I'll put it even a step above that. And the town was about a third the size. So it was rock star. It was our team in Vegas. Now, as a reporter, I'm covering it as a journalist. I covered it fairly, covered it that way, but I knew the power that it had in the community. And Bob Maxson wanted to control the most powerful thing in the community. So he goes out and he tries to get support from a handful of powerful people in town. He was lobbying. He was basically lobbying to say, here's what we need to do. Sheila Strike-Bola, who was the co-head women's basketball coach with Jim Bola when they were married. They're not anymore, but that they were together, and she was going around doing Maxson's work, going around trying to encourage people to say, here's what we got to do. And Maxson was saying, here's what we got to do. We got to get rid of the basketball coach. We need to control the program. It's academics over athletics, and the only way that we do this is get rid of Jerry Tarkanian. Okay, Bob, why don't you fire him? Huh? There's a thought. Why don't you fire him? Well, my little school here, we can't really do that. I don't want to take the hit for that. You'd have to be courageous to do something like that. Bob Maxson just wouldn't. No, he was afraid to do it. I remember a conversation I had with Steve Wynn once about this. And Wynn was on Tark's side at one point, him and Elaine, but was recruited by Maxson to. He clearly then went over to the Maxson side. This was right at a time when the image of Vegas was changing too, from Sin City to a family town, which the family town thing lasted about 5 years. MGM Grand, remember they used to have MGM Grand had that, what was it, a theme park where their convention area is. Used to be a theme park there, and it was going to be a family town, but that failed miserably. But I think it sort of coincided with that, is that they wanted to control the most powerful thing in this community. And okay, if you want to take their point of view that it was a positive thing to do, that, okay, there was bad publicity through the basketball program because of the NCAA violation. Well, there weren't violations, but because of the NCAA investigations. Let's go there. Because of the investigations, there was negative things, and there was some legitimate negative things that were out there. But as I said, the violations never found a major violation under Tark. They did that long investigation that they did. Came out with 26 minor violations, 2 of them that were related to Jerry Tarkanian. Stupid stuff like one of them was Danny Tarkanian gave Travis Bice a ride in his car after an NCAA tournament game to the parking lot. Okay, violation. You got me. Okay, okay. Stuff like that. Okay, no, it's loaded with stuff like that, the violation. So stupid stuff. So when they didn't find anything major on Tark, with that long investigation they had with most of their investigators looking at UNLV basketball, we used to say all the time they were parked out on Maryland Parkway. I never saw them physically here, but they were basically here investigating the program. When they couldn't find anything of substance, then Maxson, okay, we got to use the media. We got to do this. We got to get rid of them. And so he was able to lobby I called it a handful of the elite in the community. Is basically what he did. Well, so anyway, my conversation with Steve Wynn was, why didn't Maxson just fire him? And Steve it was his opinion. He said, well, he couldn't. It was, Tark's got a dangerous group of people he hangs around that something bad might have happened to him. Like mobsters and cement boots at the bottom of Lake Mead, like stuff. Well, they're a dangerous crowd. Well, they're a dangerous crowd. Davy Pearl, Sig Rogish, the people that started Las Vegas. These are the people who brought Jerry Tarkanian to town. Okay. So, Freddie Glussman, let's go there. So, these are the people who brought Tark to town, who helped him and brought him here. And by the way, they're a lot of the founding fathers of the city. Now, it wasn't Bugsy Siegel mobsters, okay? It wasn't that sort of stuff. It wasn't Lefty Rosenthal and Tony the Ant Spilatro, although they were Rebel fans, the latter two there. So, Steve Winfelder would have been too dangerous for Bob Maxson to have fired Jerry Tarkanian. Okay, all right. I don't think so. I don't agree with that. I don't. In fact, no. But anyway, that was what they felt. I guess I'll take them at their word. But there was no proof of that. There was no proof of that. But just that's what they felt. Okay. So then what you do, you're Bob Maxson, and you then decide to take and put the school through a tremendous amount of the school. Your little school, right? You want academics over athletics here. We're going to protect the program. So you put the school through horrific publicity, but you want it directed towards Jerry Tarkanian. Oh, the players, the athletes, horrific publicity. Student athletes, these are your students. They're being used as pawns in this pissing match between the administration and Jerry Tarkanian. And you're going to come out of that the city put the city through this, all because you don't have the guts to fire him. No, I don't buy that. Just fire him. Just get rid of him. That's what you do. But it didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way. It happened with like I said, plan A was the NCAA. Plan B was you could have fired him, which no, can't do that. Plan C was let's use the media then to destroy him to the point that we get rid of him. And eventually that's what happened. The hot tub photos are going to come up at some point. Hot tub photo. 12 days after the hot tub photos were published in the Review Journal, Jerry Tarkanian resigned. And that was seen as the coup de grace. This was in the Review Journal, Sunday morning paper. There's pictures of 3 basketball players at UNLV with a guy named Richie the Fixer Perry, who was also known as Sam Perry, and was Moses Scurry's basketball coach, AAU basketball coach in New York. And that was, and that became the big battle cry of, well, you see what's going on here? Here's 3 Rebel players, Anderson Hunt, David Butler, and Moses Scurry, in a hot tub with a known gambler, known to us now as Richie the Fixer Perry, but Moses and others knew him only as Sam Perry, an AAU coach. They didn't know because he didn't go. He was Sam Perry was busted in the Boston College betting scandal, fixing basketball games, and then became a prominent AAU coach in New York. He coached many great players, Mark Jackson, Dwayne Shintz's Syracuse, Georgetown players, St. John's players, go down the list. And he coached them at this AAU basketball team in New York. I have photos of those players with Richie the Fixer or Sam Perry. It was never an issue at any of those schools. Nobody cared about it. Nobody cared about it there. But the context that it was put in here was it has to be nefarious. It has to be evil. It has to be what? No, wait, Moses. That's Moses' coach. Wouldn't you hang out with your coach if you were in a different city? And let's say I'm from L.A., which I grew up in L.A. I played high school basketball. If my high school basketball coach were in Florida and I visited Florida, the same city that he was in, I might go hang out with my high school basketball coach. Now, if he fixed college basketball games 20 years prior to that, am I held responsible? Of course not. Of course not. That's ridiculous. Oh, no. But in this case, the ridiculous happened, and they were held responsible. And the program was held responsible. And it was just another one of those knife stabs in the back that then continued to hit Jerry Tarkanian with how could this have happened? Well, how could it happen? Moses knew the guy as Sam Perry. Didn't know him as Richie the Fixer because he didn't advertise himself as being a guy who had been busted for fixing games. So he was hanging out here in Vegas. And what brought this to light also was a photographer by the name of Greg Cava. We'll try to get Greg on. I'm going to see if I can reach him to get him on the podcast. Greg Cava had mentioned to me one time how Dennis Fenfrock came over to his office and wanted to look at pictures. That he was the official photographer at UNLV at the time. Wanted to find pictures of what was going on with we didn't really tell him, I guess. He just wanted to see his Rebel basketball collection. And then he says, I want pictures of fans in the stands. Oh, that was sort of a weird request. So he's fishing through them and finally finds a picture of Sam Perry, Richie the Fixer Perry, at a Rebel basketball game not too far behind the Rebel bench. It was a game, I think, against Florida State. That was part of the duel in the desert, and that's important, but I'll explain that in a moment. But so he gets him, finds, okay, that's a picture. Usually the athletic director wants to find pictures of players, athletes doing big things. But he personally went over there, rifled through the photos, found this picture of Sam Perry, and found this as the evidence he needed. And that picture, and there were a couple of them, I believe. The reason it was the duel in the desert, no, that's important, is that wasn't season ticket. He was next to David Chesnoff, a prominent attorney here in town, who was his attorney, by the way. And so the reason that game is significant is because it wasn't part of the season ticket plan. So you could just go up to the counter and you could buy those tickets. Or if you're David Chesnoff, you buy them in advance. If you're a prominent guy here in town, you can get them. So it wasn't like he sat in those seats every game. It was just for that game, one or two games, that he had those seats, and he could get them because of that. So then the photo was either put in the RJ or put in a season ticket program, a banquet program, and then once it was in the banquet program, intentionally put in there by somebody, it was then, what? Are you kidding me? There he is. Look, it just happens to be that photo in the banquet program of Richie Perry in there, and then all hell broke loose. What's he doing there? Why is he there? How could this happen? How could this possibly be? Well, there you have it. It could be because the athletic director put all the wheels in motion to make that happen. So I start hearing many of these stories, and I know many of these stories, and they're firsthand, and they are not denied by anybody at the administration. And should I keep quiet? Well, what do I do as a reporter? Do I not say anything? There was one incident in particular I'm going to tell you about when this was, I'm at Channel 13, and I did a commentary blasting the university president, Bob Maxson, for a lot of this stuff going on behind the scenes because he was being dishonest. Okay, if you even want to say it was a noble thing to get rid of Tark, he was lying to the public about it. Anyway, so I go on, and I was pretty pointed. I called him King Bob, and I ripped him, and I said mob-like tactics. He's using tactics that would make Bugsy Siegel and Tony the Ant Spilotro proud and all that sort of stuff. So I was pretty hard on him. And when I was done, get done with the sportscast, at that time, at the end of our newscast, the general manager would go on and do a commentary. So our general manager is Jim Baling, was the general manager at the time at Channel 13. He did an editorial praising Bob Maxson for this battle. So I look at that and I go, hold on. Now I'm on the wrong side of my management here. I mentioned the RJ stuff earlier. I'm on the wrong side of my management. Where's this going to go? So I leave the studio, and in fact, Jim's walking down the hallway as soon as I walk out. I think by design. I think he wanted this and said, "Hey, Ron, what's up? Saw your commentary." I said, "Yeah, Jim, what's up? I saw your editorial." He said, "Ron, let me tell you something. Hold on a second." He said, "Do you do what you're going to do? Go forward. Don't be on the sidelines on this story." Remember him telling me that specifically. "And make sure you're right." I said, "Jim, I am right, and I'm not going to be on the sidelines." The media was drug into this thing. You could not be. Now you had to be unbiased and a journalist, and I believe I was in that. But I knew what I knew. I saw what I saw, and at the time, the media would deny. They saw me as a dude with a tin hat talking about a conspiracy theory. Of course, years later, a couple of years after this is all exposed, Don Yeager wrote a book on it, exposed the media that once said there was no conspiracy to get rid of Tark, that Maxson really likes Tark, and this was that I was nuts, that I was the guy that was crazy. They all then understood that I guess they wouldn't say Ron was right. They wouldn't say that. But they then would talk about the conspiracy to get rid of Jerry Tarkanian by Bob Maxson, as if they learned it through osmosis, as if they absorbed it somehow. They just instantly came to this knowledge. What the hell? I'm sitting there going, guys, this is what I've been saying for years. And you guys finally figured it out, and you just absorb it like it just, okay. All right, I got you. Yeah. And I don't need somebody to go, Ron was right, but I was on this. So anyway, I've gone longer than I thought I was going to go with this. But this is a long intro for what this podcast is. But it needs to be done. The time is right. It's got to happen. This needs to be documented. These stories need to get out there and at least recorded to be able to be out there. And if 2 people listen to it, and if 2 million listen to it, so be it. But it needs to be out there. There needs to be more done on this. There needs to at some point be a documentary on this story. I think it's the dirtiest story in college sports. Okay, there's a lot of dirt in college athletics. Okay, a lot of dirty things happen. A lot of corruption. Again, there's no virgins in big-time college athletics. But when it goes to the university president level of deception and lies and deceit to try to destroy a basketball program, well, that's probably about as dirty as you can get in college athletics. And no, yes, it needs to be told. So that's what I'm doing with this podcast. So with that, like I said, went on much longer than I thought to just ramble. I've got 45 minutes just rambling here on this story. And I'm from time to time I'm going to jump in here, and when there's points and issues that need to be made, I may jump in here and just do a half hour on something, on one of the issues involved. But most of the time we're going to get guests in here throughout. And how often we do it, I don't know. Once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, depending on how many people I can get in here. What I like about podcasting is you're not restricted by time commitment and by the number that you do. So we're going to drop this one, and we got the one with Danny Tarkanian, and it's a 2-parter because we talked for an hour and 45 minutes. Danny Tarkanian and Doug Sanderson. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Tell everybody about this. Spread it. Share it. Get it out there. It needs to be told. I think Rebel basketball, and it's sad that for 30 years they have not recovered from this. They had 1 year Lon Kruger went to the Sweet 16. Okay. That was nice, 2007. Oh, yeah, that was nice. You get a little bit of feel. But the fact that they have not recovered, I don't know, is it karma? Is there somebody in New Orleans with a doll and they're sticking pins in it? When you've had a program at the highest level of college basketball and then you piss it away at the university level, do you deserve to have another chance? Well, yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be good. But wow, we got a national championship banner there. And there's a reason that we only had one, that we could have had many more. Tark didn't leave UNLV because he couldn't recruit anymore, couldn't coach anymore. The game passed him by, or he quit, or he got another job at the Lakers, which they did a couple of times, tried to get him to go to the Lakers. He said, no, I want to stay at UNLV. He didn't leave for those reasons. The program didn't get destroyed because he would have stayed here, and he had players coming that would have made this program a national power for as far as the eye can see. There would have been more banners up there. Nobody questions that part of it. But the program didn't die those normal ways that a college football, basketball, sports program would die. UCLA died when Wooden left the program, when he quit, when he retired. Okay. Gene Bartow tried, and then there was some probation and different things, and they had a little spark when Reggie Miller was there. But UCLA is not, okay. It's not easy to keep a program at that level. Tark used to say this all the time, too. He would say, you know what? You guys don't know how tough it is to keep a program at this level. This was when he coached that final season and was leaving. You guys don't know what it's like. It's not going to be as easy as you think. But the university would go, oh, yeah, no, we could do it. Well, oh, yeah, you watch. We'll get the coach. They tried to get a number of coaches to come here, and they couldn't find a coach. They finally had to beg Rolly Massimino, gave him 2 contracts, a secret supplemental contract and the actual contract, $500,000 a year or so, $585,000, I think, from the taxpayers of the state of Nevada, and then a second secret supplemental contract, $375,000 a year. That was secret. Oh boy, that's a whole nother story. No, I'm going to do a whole thing on Rolly's secret contract and how that then blew the program up. But Rolly, what's important with Rolly is, and he's now gone, Tark's gone, but the Rebels were 13-1 when Rolly got here. And there were people at the university pounding their chest going, you know what? Look, we kept the program at the top. We're 13-1 right now. These were Tark's players, of course. J.R. Ryder had to break rules to get eligible again to play with Rolly, but that was Rolly's babe. That was him. That was his program. Academic scandal happened with him. Anyway, they wanted. They were busting at their britches, going, you know what? Look, we're keeping this program at the highest level. Shortly after that, they started losing. I used the phrase on air that it took a while, but he got the Rebel pride out of them, and eventually Rolly taught them how to lose. They went to the NIT that year and lost in the first round to USC. I also said at that time, isn't it great, Rolly Massimino, you hired a coach that has NIT experience. He didn't like that. No, he didn't like that a whole lot. I don't blame him, but I was right. And I was being a little bit of a smart aleck about it. But so anyway, that's it. Now I've gone almost 50. No, we're going to cut it at 50 minutes. Okay, I see 49. We're counting down. We could do this 50 minutes in this. We're done. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Ron Futrell. We're going to continue these, the rise and fall of the Rebels. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.